For a brief moment, I forgot where I was supposed to be. Well, don't just stand there, come over and sit a spell. I looked up from my book, and I took in all the new surroundings. I was no longer on the porch with the detective. I wasn't at the dining room table. I was back in the Great Hall. The old-timey phonograph filled the air with dulcet instruments. A bookshelf stood in arm's reach before my eyes. The very same piece of furniture that once served as a secret door to the explosive library. The game had reset again. Only in a different place. They must have decided to switch things up this time. The voice had come from the old man with the walrus mustache. He smiled at me from his seat by the fireplace. He was completely oblivious to the rest of the world, like a poorly trained piece of AI that he is. I shut the book in my hands and returned it to the shelf, before reading the title on the cover, The King's Lunacy by Edgar Allan Poe. Too bad none of the books here were real. That was sounding like a good one. I left the worthless Nathaniel where he sat and went to the parlor to find Jerry. He would know what to do. I surmised from the sound of the voices that the rest of the group had respawned together. Fortunately, nobody was screaming or fighting, which could only mean they got Wolfgang under control before he killed and separated. As soon as I walked in through the pocket doors, Hope stepped into my path saying, "Hi, my name is Hope." I froze momentarily, losing my train of thought. She seemed so carefree all of a sudden. The stress must have finally made her snap. Poor thing. "Yeah, I know who you are, Hope." There was a glass in her hand and a smile on her face. "I wanted to ask for your help. See, I'm here with my son Wolfgang. He's a very bright boy, extremely talented, but he isn't the most outgoing. He's had a hard time making friends back home. I was thinking maybe this weekend you would give him a chance to come out of his shell." She raised a glass to her lips and took a large swallow. Oh God, what's happening? "Hope, I need to ask you a stupid question. Do you know who I am?" She laughed and said, "No, I'm sorry. Have we met?" "Oh, is this part of the game? I've never done one of these before." She tried a silly accent and batted her eyelashes and said, "Hello there, old friend. Fancy running into you in a place like this." I laughed a little too hard and patted her on the shoulder and said, "Your child's a serial killer." She returned the laugh, but cut it off short with a confused "Wait, what?" Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed that Maggie was still alive. She was currently talking to Bridget, probably warning her that not everyone was who they seemed. I turned and searched for Jerry, but he wasn't in the room. Instead, I saw Wolfgang leaning against a wall, looking bored out of his mind. Tobias said it himself. Memory is just a chemical process, a predictable, malleable result of amino acid chain reactions. Any group sophisticated enough to build a world like this probably had the technology to do whatever our humble little brains wanted, and we'd never even know. At the far side of the room, Claire stood by her sister's side, watching me silently. If there was anyone here who might understand what was happening. I cut across the room and said, "Claire, you remember me, don't you?" Her piercing blue eyes very clearly answered that for her. No, she did not remember me. Claire tried to move away, but I took her by the arm and turned her to face me. I had to make her understand. I needed her to read my thoughts, to know that I wasn't crazy. I needed her to tell everybody that I wasn't crazy. I needed her to tell me that I wasn't crazy. But there was no understanding in the look she returned. It was only confusion and pity. "Get away from her, you creep." I don't know how I had already forgotten about Lauren. She punched me in the face hard enough to start a trail of blood pouring out of my nose. Other than Bridget's gasp from the other side of the parlor, the room had gone deathly quiet. "Okay," I said. "I deserve that. I shouldn't have grabbed you, Claire. I apologize." I turned around to look at something. Something to cork my bloody nose. Once I spotted the clutch purse on the sofa, I changed my plans. "Oh, excuse me, Hope." As I said, I picked up her purse. "That's mine." I laughed it off and I said, "Oh, I assure you, this is actually mine. We must have gotten them mixed up at the same place." I opened it and reached inside. Walmart's Black Friday sale, 2018, am I right? My finger touched metal. Eureka. I grabbed the weapon and pulled it out. I tried to hide it in my jacket pocket, but I wasn't fast enough. The moment it came out, Bridget shouted, "Is that a gun?" Hope screamed, "He has a gun! Help!" Before I knew it, Bridget planted a kick square into my solar plexus hard enough to make an MMA fighter consider retirement. I hit the ground gasping for air. The gun escaped my grip, slid under a chair nearby. For 1 second, nobody noticed or moved. Then, utter chaos as we all bolted for it at the same time. Wolfgang swooped in with the precision and speed of a bird of prey, snatching the weapon up like he had just recovered a fumble. As soon as I got back up, I gave chase. He saw me coming and bolted out of the room like a cockroach in the spotlight. I knew from experience that he'd be faster than me in a fair race. I was busy trying to figure out what I could throw at him, and I got lucky. He reached the base of the stairs and tried to hook the angle, but his dress shoes must have had less traction than he was used to. He skidded into the wall and paused to regain his balance, then crumpled like an old soda can once I slammed into him at full speed. Wolfgang and the gun hit the floor. I picked up the gun and left the boy. The others were already pouring out of the parlor within seconds. I was surrounded. Maggie was screaming for somebody to call the cops. Hope was shrieking bloody murder. I tried to yell over them, try to get them to calm down. I may as well have been trying to nail water to a wall. Hope was charging at me until I pointed the weapon, stopping her in her tracks. The front door opened. Tobias rushed inside. Jerry was close behind. They both froze when they saw the gun. "This isn't part of the game," Maggie yelled. "That boy's lost his mind." Jerry took the cigar from his mouth and held out his hands. Wait. What's going on? What did I miss? Finally, a chance to explain myself. I just need to make sure I don't screw up. "We got you manjied." Judging from the reaction on his face, I don't think Jerry fully understood what I meant. Judging from everybody else's faces, he wasn't alone. Only one person was alone here, and it didn't feel so great. Lauren took a step closer, asking, "What do you mean?" I aimed the gun at her. They were all closing in on me, at different speeds, only stopping when I pointed the gun at them. I was losing time. To make things worse, Wolfgang was coming back to his senses, groaning in exaggerated pain. I knew he was manipulating them. I mean, I barely knocked him out. What's the big deal? I tried explaining again. This house, it's just one of those, Jumanji situations. I think it might be aliens or something along those lines. You don't have to make that face, Jerry. I can hear myself. I know how it sounds. Hope took another step toward me. I pointed the gun at her. But this time, it didn't stop her. She took another step. "Stop," I yelled. "Everybody just stop moving for a minute. I'm trying to tell you what's really happening." I've never been very good at public speaking, so I'm kind of nervous. If you can all just chill out and I can prove it. I was out of time. It was now or never. In a moment of utter desperation, I did the only thing I could think of. I shot Nathaniel twice in the chest. Predictably, everyone acted as if I had just shot an actual human being. There were gasps and screams, and before the dust could settle, everyone had a chance to see I was right. Tobias did what Tobias does. He tried to take control of the situation, and he just made things worse. Jerry saw it coming a half a second before I did. Tobias pulled the gun out of his ankle holster and delivered a perfectly timed left hook across his face. I didn't even have enough time to move my gun. Tobias had already hit the floor. Jerry had relieved him of his weapon. I tried to raise my voice above all the others, all the ones screaming, just for them to look and see. Nathaniel wasn't dead. I pointed at the body slumped in the seat by the fireplace to show them I wasn't crazy. I wasn't crazy. I couldn't figure out how to make everyone shut up and listen. If I could whistle, it might have been a good time. But Jerry fired 3 shots into the ceiling and did the trick splendidly. His was the only voice in the now silent room. "Jack, buddy, you know I'm your ride or die bitch, but I have to say I'd prefer more ride and less of the die." I looked closer at the man I'd shot. For the first time since I'd met him, I was hoping Nathaniel might have something to contribute. However, he remained motionless, kept his mouth shut. I stepped away from the spot where Wolfgang was regaining his composure on the ground. crossed the short distance to Nathaniel, and poked him in the head a couple of times with the barrel of the gun. He stayed stubbornly still. It didn't take long for me to understand that Nathaniel wasn't coming to my rescue. The house wasn't about to make this easy, and why should it? They spent untold amount of time and resources on this thing, only for me to come by and, stomp all over their sandcastle? Force them back to the drawing board? Those who had engineered the simulation must have been advanced beyond any of my understanding. But there's one emotion that persisted as long as there's been intelligent life, and no amount of utilitarian logic can override it. Simply put, the ones in charge were being petty. I took a deep breath. Jerry, I know how this looks, but hear me out. I've been to the future, sorta. I know things. There aren't any people in this house. It's a trap. All of us are here because our cars mysteriously broke down and we all needed to make a phone call. It was strange how nobody reacted to the bombshell the way I thought they would. Way less shock and horror, way more confusion and horror. I looked at Lauren and said, right? She made a non-committal shrug and said, sure, whatever you say, crazy man. No, it's not like that. I'm telling the truth. Why are you all acting like you don't already know? None of you are meant to be here, right? A long, uncomfortable moment passed before Hope asked, Is this part of the game? Because I'm not having any fun at all. Okay, I said. I see what happened here. They took their memory a step back further. Instead of erasing, they took the reroute, edited the story together and make it look like I was a raving lunatic. Or maybe, Jerry said, stepping closer to me, you just imagined it all. What? No, not you too, Jerry. Think about it, bro. What's a likelier scenario? That we're all unwitting recruited into a supernatural whodunit simulator? Or your mind is just playing tricks on you again? In an instant, Tobias was on his feet, charging into Jerry from behind. Upon impact, Jerry screamed, hot potato, and flung the pistol into the air. By some miracle, I managed to catch it before it hit the ground. I now had exactly 2 guns more than I ever felt comfortable holding, which made me the de facto man in charge, I guess. Tobias was on top of Jerry, hands around his neck, squeezing the life out of him. I yelled for him to stop, but he wouldn't listen. I swear I meant to fire a warning shot, but I raised the gun, it went off in my hand. The others fled the room, running for their lives. Tobias made a noise like a gasp, then he fell on his side, a circle of blood rapidly saturating the back of his coat where the bullet had struck. Jerry sat up, coughing. As soon as he could breathe, he was doing chest compressions on Tobias's lifeless body. I dropped the weapons. Then, I fell onto the seat across from Nathaniel, and waited for whatever was going to happen to go ahead and happen. Jerry's shirt was drenched in Tobias's blood. When he finally gave up and walked over to Nathaniel's corpse, I thought he was going to check for signs of life. But instead, he just reached into the old NPC's coat, pulled out a cigarette tin, and helped himself to a smoke. I watched as he lit the wooden match on the zipper of his coat, took a drag, and then said, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. You just killed 2 dudes. Probably a little too late to unfuck this donkey. He walked over and knelt down in front of me. But we can't explain to the police what really happened. You had another one of your episodes. You forgot to take your medicine. It wasn't your fault. None of this was your fault. He was really starting to remind me of Hope's internal monologue. There aren't any police coming. There aren't going to be any police. What part of We've Been Jumanji do you not understand? You still think you're in a simulation. He sighed with disappointment, picked up one of the guns at my feet and put it to his head. Well, if that's the case, why don't I just kill myself now, huh? If you're so certain that none of this is real, what's the point of going on? He grabbed my hand and pulled it up, pressing the gun against his head. Come on, Jack. Put your money where your mouth is. Either it's all real, or none of it's real. Pick a lane. Make a decision. His fingers clamped around my hand, holding it in place on the gun. I used my free hand to poke him in the eyes. He yelped loudly like a kicked chihuahua and released his grip. Jerry, I said, you remember Lucy, don't you? He answered slowly. Lucy? Yeah, sure. Why? What about her? Lucy was his on-again, off-again long-distance fling for the past few months. They were currently in off-again mode, but there was a period where Jerry wouldn't shut up about her. I knew more about Lucy's personal life than I did my own. What kind of pet does she own? He stared blankly forward at me. He held the word, like I wouldn't realize that he was buying time. Pulled back the hammer on the gun, forcing him to take a guess. Cat? I shot him in the foot. The reaction was not at all what I expected. Dog. She said dog, right? I shot his other foot. Who are you? In one quick gesture, he put his hands in his face, curled his fingers into the skin, and ripped it off like a fancy Halloween mask made of gum. The smiling face underneath belonged to the one who called himself the detective. He said it himself. You will play the game eventually, even if I have to personally play along with you. Fascinating, he said. How did you know? Your acting sucks. You weren't supposed to remember. How could you remember? Oh, I wanted to forget everything. There was a part of my mind that I could feel inviting me to go with it all. To release the past few days into nothingness beyond existence. To fill the vacuum with a new memory about how Jerry and I planned a trip to Bedside Manor over a year ago as a retreat from our boring life back home. That memory was pleasant and warm. And fake. I don't pretend to know exactly what's wrong with me, but my memory has never been normal. I probably forget more than a single day than most people forget in their entire life. I constantly struggle to know which of my memories are real or imagined. My doctor tried countless remedies to help with my confusion, and I doubt I could ever understand how much effort goes into maintaining normalcy. How much of my day is spent trying to desperately remember all of the things that I forgot. I guess after all this time, I've built up a slight tolerance to fake memories. I let the useless gun fall to the floor and then asked, Are we done yet? Done? Oh no, Jack. No. We're just getting started. Why? I think I've proved pretty much that I'm not compatible with whatever this is. That's perfect. This is a success. We wanted to see what would happen if somebody broke the game. Do you think it's a coincidence that you're all here at the same time? A spy? A black hat hacker, a super genius, a complete maniac, a class 1 psychic at her prime, and a child who grew up to be the most proficient serial killer of his generation? Wait, which one of those things is supposed to be me? The participants for the stress test are selected exclusively for their chaotic markers. We need to know if everything would work beyond the limits of normal operation. And if they don't, then we catch our mistakes and fix them before colonization begins. If we can make you conform, we can make anyone conform. Why are you telling me all of this? As the tides ebb and flow, so does all the knowledge of the empires rise and fall. Life begins only to end. We put thoughts in your head just to see how easily we could take them away. At that point, I forgot exactly what I was doing. I was only moderately aware that this man, whoever he was talking to me. I couldn't remember where I was or why I was there. I had zoned out completely, but I smiled and nodded along politely, just like I'd been trained to do. Even as my mind continued to wander, this just felt like whatever customer prattled on for too long at the gas station. Come on, dude, you're holding up the line. Nobody wants to hear your opinion. Yes, the weather changes a lot. Yes, sports are full of unpredictable moments. No, I didn't watch the game. Something chittered loudly as it ran across my foot. We can change it up if you want, the man said. I blinked a few times. How long had he been talking? Do you like zombies? We can do zombies. What the heck was he going on about? I could feel the new memory trying to form inside my mind. It was like a warm bed on a cold night. Comfortable and seductive. But I knew better than to let it take over and push the harsh truth out of place. But I caught a piece of it. We were trapped here, cut off from the rest of the world. Our car hit something on the road. Something that looked human, but it wasn't. It attacked us. We barely made it to the house in one piece before they started swarming us. Tobias sat up, a deep guttural growl emanating from his chest. He got to his feet and began to shamble toward us, his arms outstretched, mouth wide open. The detective acted like nothing was out of the ordinary. We prepared for our final stand, but tensions grew hot. Tobias wanted to be in charge. He was going to get us all killed. I looked for the gun. I needed to end this monster before it reached me. He was infected. And in a moment, I shook the thought out of my head. The smile on the detective's face disappeared. "Okay," he said. "Forget the zombies." Tobias instantly evaporated in a puff of smoke. "Why don't we try to make things a little bit more interesting?" Guys, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. We're getting close to the end of this. I think we have like maybe 3 chapters left. Chapter 11. That should be easier, shouldn't it? Oh, no. 1. Oh, next week will be the last one. Yeah, this is a good story. Damn it, that sucks. If you guys have any recommendations or suggestions or requests on what to do next, just feel free to let me know. Hit me up on Twitter or wherever. Discord is fine. I am always checking messages and stuff, so let me know. I want to give a big thank you to all the patrons who are currently still supporting this channel, even after my little hiatus from here. I really appreciate it. If you want to become a patron, check the link down below. I do plan on uploading more Patreon-only content soon, but I am working on like 82 different projects, so my hands are pretty tied. But I promise it will happen. Thank you for watching. Like, share, do all that stuff YouTube likes. We'll see you next week with the finale.